everyone, and welcome to another episode of Horizon Hosts. I am so excited to be talking to the incredible Felicity Ashley today. She is a motivational speaker and also has joined us as one of our Horizon experts. So, Felicity, welcome to Horizon Hosts.
Thank you, Cassie. It's brilliant to be here. I'm so pleased to be part of this community.
We are absolutely over the moon to have you. I just said how stunning you look in that green. It really does suit you. It's beautiful. It's
Thank
like
you.
pinging off the computer. It's gorgeous. You look amazing. We wanted to come together because we have our Riding the Waves of Change webinar on Tuesday, the 3rd of Feb. So for anybody in the community, we will be going live at 8 p.m. on Tuesday, the 3rd of Feb. And Felicity, you're going to be talking to us about resilience, identity, and, like growth as we go through this transition change in our lives. So that was just a reminder to our community, but it's also really great for them to get to know you before. So I have my questions ready. I hope
Lovely.
you don't mind, but I'm going to ask away and then we can
Please
get started.
do.
Amazing. Okay. So Felicity, just so our community can get to know you, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Absolutely. I'm a mum of three. I have three small, well, no, not really small anymore. They are 13, 10 and 8. I don't even know their ages. 13, 10 and 8. 2 boys and a girl. So busy working mum of three. I'm a motivational speaker, as you say. But I've only been doing that really for two and a bit years. So before that, I spent over 20 years in the corporate world, mainly leading marketing teams. So working with the lovely Laura for a time.
Yes.
So that's really my background, is business background. And then I sort of almost fell into the motivational speaking because of a series of life events, let's say, that happened. So I, as you know, rode across the Atlantic in 2021, 2022 as part of a career of 4 mums, and was then very quickly afterwards diagnosed with bowel cancer. And so it's really a combination of those 2 experiences that completely changed my life and led me down this new and exciting path. And it's very much a story, I suppose, of midlife transformation. Not something that was necessarily planned, but about seizing the opportunities that came out of adventure and adversity.
Yeah, absolutely. And really everything that Horizon has been created to do. So we're so aligned, which is just wonderful. I know you just touched on a little bit about this challenge that you endured, but I actually just want to explain to our community in a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
You actually spent, I can't believe I'm reading this, you actually spent 40 days at sea as part of the mothership crew, rowing 3,000 miles unsupported across the Atlantic Ocean in one of the world's toughest endurance challenges. I mean, Felicity, what do you have to say for yourself?
Well, yeah, it was a fairly bonkers challenge to take on, I suppose, in the first place. It really was the most incredible experience. I mean, they do describe it as a sort of a once in a lifetime, life-changing experience, and it absolutely was. Although, as I've now come to realize, for me, it's not a once in a lifetime experience because I'm doing another one. But it was almost the ultimate test of mental and physical endurance, something that very few people do. So when we crossed the finishing line, we became 4 of fewer than 200 women to have ever crossed an ocean, or rowed an ocean rather. So yeah, more people have been to space, and more people climb Everest than row oceans. It's not for the faint-hearted, and it was just such an incredible privilege to be able to do that, because it was a long time, as you say. I mean, the actual crossing itself took us 40 days, rowing 24 hours a day between us. So typically it was 2 hours on, 2 hours off. So the maximum sleep you get at any one point was 90 minutes. Physically and mentally brutal. But to be able to take that time out of life and go and do something like that was just such an incredible privilege. And, I'm forever grateful that I was able to do that, because of the support from the people around me, really. As a working mum, there was no way I could have done it without an incredibly strong support crew around me to, pick up the pieces and fill in the gaps while I was away.
They must have been so proud of you.
Yeah, they were. When I did it, my children were 4, 6, and 8. My eldest Sam turned 9 while we were rowing, And in some way, certainly Grace, my 4-year-old at the time, was almost too young to really know what was going on. But they still talk about it now. They'll talk to people we don't really know, and then they'll just randomly pop up with, my mummy rode across the Atlantic. So, I know from how they are and who they talk to about it, that they're super proud. They'll tell anyone and everyone. And it's just lovely that they've got those memories. And for them, they don't, yes, I think they realise it's unusual, but they don't, it's certainly possible for them. And that's really why we did it. We were the mothership. We have 11 children between us. And it was about inspiring our children, as well as other women, to show that you really can go and do extraordinary things if you have the right mindset, if you're prepared to roll up your sleeves and work hard, and if you've got the right people around you to support you. And it was so important for us that we showed our children that we're not just mums. We do have an identity outside being their mums, and that we're all capable of doing extraordinary things.
Yes, absolutely phenomenal. It really is such an achievement and life-changing, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
And also as well, you know what it's like when you get a little girly weekend away, you come back and your heart feels so full. And I know that obviously you were under immense pressure, and there were probably times where you did think, oh my goodness, what am I actually doing? But being with other women, with that one goal to get to the end, to look after each other while you're away, it must have just been so empowering, liberating. What do you think it taught you about yourself?
I mean, all of those things. It taught me about resilience, the depths of our physical and mental resilience. I think we all wondered whether it would break us at points, and it didn't. And that was the incredible thing. There was no time when I thought, I can't do this, I can't go on, or anything else. It was just, we got stronger and stronger and stronger as we went through it. And it was about, I suppose, again, about our capacity to overcome challenge. So many crews never actually make it to the start line because of the challenges you have to come simply to get there. And we faced endless challenges, partly because we were a crew of mums and because it's difficult, to get away as mums.
Yeah.
But for all sorts of other reasons like COVID and financial reasons and all sorts. And there were so many times when we could have just thrown our hands in there and said, look, it's too much. We're gonna abandon it. But we didn't. We kept going because we had this goal and we had this motivation to show our children that, anything is possible. And almost, what would it have been telling our children if we'd have given up? So I think it taught me so much about my own resilience, but also about the joy in being together as a group of women and women supporting women. We had such a brilliant time. We laughed almost all the time, like belly laughs, tears rolling down your face, laughing, almost to the point where you don't really even know anymore why you're laughing, but you're just laughing. It was just that pure joy of being together and almost being liberated from the noise of normal life, the pressures of work, the pressures of being constantly in communication with, through a million different channels with a million different people. And all of that was stripped back, and it was suddenly learning how to just be without all of that noise and just appreciate the environment you're in, the people around you, and the very basics of life. It was an absolute joy and, as I say, an absolute privilege. And yeah, I'd massively recommend it to anyone who has a little bit of bravery.
It's almost like as well, you're so right about it. We're on 24 hours a day, aren't we? It never really stops. And it's almost like a complete detox of other people being able to be communicated, computers, laptops, everything, the phone, social media. Yeah, that must have been absolutely brilliant.
It really frees your mind, and you learn how to use your imagination again and be more creative. So, lots of one of the challenges can be boredom. But actually, I was never bored at all. We all took Kindles with us, and I didn't open it. I don't think any of us opened our Kindles once, because you suddenly just, when you're released from all of this other noise, you just become, as I say, your imagination, becomes much more evident. And so it's about looking at the sky and seeing the different shapes of the clouds and playing the game. Well, what shape's that? Is it a Formula One car? Is it a teddy bear? What is it? And that will keep us going for shift upon shift upon shift, or playing silly games like the ABC of sandwich fillings or the ABC of ex-boyfriends, or, it got more blue as the time went on, I think. And that was the reason we laughed so much. But it's amazing how you can entertain yourself when you actually tap into your creativity and your imagination again.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Just weeks after returning, though, you were actually diagnosed with stage 3 bowel cancer. I mean,
Yeah.
it sort of makes the hairs on my arms stand up. Can you share what that period was like for you, physically, emotionally? Like, what was going on?
Yeah, I mean, looking back, it all seems very surreal, because I went from this massive high of finishing the race and the euphoria of having done something that, we didn't know if we could do when we started out. Most people didn't know if we could do, to suddenly, it was an absolute wake up call, being told you've got cancer. And for about a week, I didn't know if it was terminal or not. I didn't know if I'd get to see my children grow up, and that was tough. But I think, in many ways, the row was the perfect preparation for it, because not only was I physically strong still, I was, physically really fit and strong, but mentally I knew that I was bulletproof. And so from a mindset perspective, I was just able to kind of take all of that and apply it to this next challenge. And everything I learned through the row was everything I then did, during the cancer treatment and diagnosis. So yeah, of course, I would never wish it on anybody, but I was sort of almost able to it's certainly in retrospect, take the positives out of it, and apply a, well, why not me approach to it. Because I've got all this fitness and resilience and endurance from the row, then I'm going to get through this. And actually, I'm much better equipped than almost anybody else on the planet to get through it. And that was very much how I approached it. And then, it's just about looking on the bright side of life, I suppose. And having been away from home and been away from my children for 2 months, suddenly I wasn't working at the time. I took the time off out from work to have my treatment, and suddenly I was at home with the kids again. So yes, I wasn't very well, but I had this amazing opportunity to spend all that time with my children again, and be there for them. And so, yeah, it was a lot about mindset. And about trying to keep physically strong, and approaching it like any other big challenge. It was about taking it day by day, step by step, with a kind of a belief and a confidence that I knew I could get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. What was your treatment plan, Felicity, if you don't mind talking about that?
Not at all. No, I had surgery. So I was diagnosed in May, and then 3 weeks after my diagnosis, I had surgery. So it was quite significant bowel surgery. It was a bowel resection. So it's about 7 or 8 hours of surgery, and it was telescopic, robotic. So there were kind of five smaller incisions with the kind of telescopic tubes or whatever going in, and then a larger incision, a bit like a C-section incision, to remove the mass. And that went really smoothly. Because I was still fit and strong, I was able to recover pretty quickly from it. So I was up on my feet and actually back home within 3 days. And again, it was just such a wake-up call, because I looked around the ward that I was on and saw all of these other patients, most of whom were significantly older, but they seemed to lack the strength to even kind of push themselves up to sitting in their hospital beds. And I just remember thinking, gosh, how lucky am I actually to be going through this young, when I'm so fit and strong, and I can get through it. So 6 weeks after my surgery, I was then given chemo. So I was on a 4-month course of chemo, 6 rounds of chemo, which was a combination of infusions. So I had a PICC line. So I had a 48-hour infusion and a 2-hour infusion every 3 weeks. And as you know, I'm sure it's a bit of a roller coaster, because, physically you go through your ups and downs, and you don't know how it's going to affect you from one round to the next. You might fly through one round and then actually be knocked out by the next one. But again, it's about treating it like any big goal, like a big work goal, like a big physical challenge. It's just about taking it step by step. And you know, almost arming yourself with as much knowledge and information as possible, and knowing you're going to go through these lows, but that you will get through them, and then you will feel better afterwards.
Yeah,
And also knowing that even though it's horrible at the time, it's actually what's going to make you better. And for me, it was about reducing my chance of recurrence, because when I started on the chemo, I was probably cancer free, not entirely. Who knows if I was entirely cancer free? It depends. There was no visible signs of cancer, but there might have been microscopic cells lurking
yeah,
somewhere, which is why I had chemo. So it was about looking at the stats really and doing everything I could to minimise the chance of recurrence.
yeah,
And so it's
absolutely.
about short-term pain for long-term gain.
Did you have to have radiotherapy?
No.
Okay, so it was surgery and chemo.
Surgery and chemo. And what I found really interesting was almost the first thing my surgeon said to me was, and she was a lady similar age, with very similar interests actually. She was a triathlete. She said, if you have to have chemo, you won't lose your hair. And I just thought, and I just thought that was such an interesting thing to say, because for women, it's such a big part of your identity, isn't it? And I think, you know, especially when, you know, breast cancer is obviously the kind of treatment that ends up with hair loss. And it was so perceptive, I think, because, you know,
Definitely.
it's interesting the preoccupations we have and the concerns we have. And
Yeah,
actually for her to be able to kind of remove that almost, or anticipate that as a concern and then remove it as a concern, I just thought was really perceptive. And she also said, look, I'm gonna do your incisions so that it's like a horizontal scar underneath where your bikini might go, so that if you want to wear bikinis in the future, you can wear bikinis in the future. And again, it was just like,
unbelievable.
it was treating me as an individual, recognizing
Yeah,
me as kind of an active young person who might want to go out there and do stuff again, and, you know, expose my body again, and doing everything that she could to help me do that.
yeah,
Yeah, it
that's
was
incredible.
brilliant treatment. Yeah.
Absolutely. I remember when I was told that I had breast cancer, it literally was the first thing that I asked was, am I going to lose my hair? And my surgeon was like, yes, but it will grow back. And I was like, that's not good enough for me. You know, so
Yeah.
the fact that she actually was like, this is going to happen, but you're not going to, you know, it's just, yeah,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
special, very special.
Yeah.
How are you now? How are you now? How many years ago was that?
So I was diagnosed in May 2022. So
Okay, so not that long ago.
getting on
Yeah,
for 4 years ago.
yeah,
I am, well, certainly I feel fitter and stronger than ever. I mean, I'm still on it. So after my chemo, I went into a program of being monitored for 5 years. So I'm over halfway through that now, and I'm now down to kind of 6 monthly bloods and then a colonoscopy or a scan every year. So I had my last scan in January. I haven't got the results for that yet, but my bloods in December were all clear. So as
brilliant,
far as I'm
brilliant.
concerned, I'm still cancer
Yeah,
free, and almost every day that goes by, my chance of recurrence reduces. So it kind of peaked at 27% chance after my treatment, and then stays around that level, I think, for the first 2.5 years, and then it kind of takes a dip. So I
yeah,
think the worst is behind me in terms of risk of recurrence, but, you know, you can never say never. And as you know, it's something that you always live with. You're always aware, much more vigilant, much more in tune with your body, and looking out for any kind of signals that something somewhere might not be quite right.
yeah,
And I think that's something that will
absolutely.
never go away. Because, you know, even when I roll off this program of being monitored, I'll always know there's a chance of recurrence or an occurrence of a different kind.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's something you'll always live with.
absolutely. Do you think that grief and gratitude can exist in the same space? I feel like, how can I even give cancer any credit? But what I do know is that my life and the way that I feel about myself now is so much better than it was prior to
Yeah.
my diagnosis. And I really struggle with that, Felicity. I struggle with it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And it sounds really odd saying I'm almost grateful to have had it. And this is where, you know, I would absolutely never wish it on anybody, but I
No.
wouldn't take it back either. And I get people asking me, you know, as a professional speaker, is there anything you change about your story? And I know what they're really asking is, would
Yeah.
you choose not to have cancer again? And I genuinely, hand on heart, say no, I wouldn't change it, because it is an absolutely life-changing experience. And for me, it's been a catalyst for positive change. It's been a catalyst for growth, personal growth, professional growth, it's change of career. And I know it sounds like a cliche, but it's just given me a new perspective on life and genuinely a new purpose, which is why I do what I do now. Why I'm, delighted to be part of the HERIZEN community. And I wouldn't have any of that had I not been through it. I wouldn't be about to row another ocean if I hadn't been through it. It has opened my eyes to different things. It's opened the door to so many different opportunities. So of course it in the short term, it took away a few things. It stopped me doing a few things, but long term, it's actually for me been a positive.
Yeah. And I definitely feel that all of the opportunities that come into my life now, my eyes are wide open. I see more things. That's to cancer.
Yeah.
I'm like, you
Yeah.
tried.
Yeah.
You tried,
Yeah.
my friend, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
Every time something incredible happens in my life, or I get through a green light, or I get home from work early on the M25 because the traffic's not bad. All of those little glimmers, like I really notice them now. I almost feel like I was sleepwalking through life
Yeah.
prior to my cancer diagnosis, and now I don't miss a trick, which is wonderful.
Yeah. I often
really
have to
is.
pinch myself when I think about what I'm doing now, the kind of people I get to meet, none of which would be happening without the cancer diagnosis. To mark my 3 years. So my oncologist said to me, look, have a party at 3 years and a big party at 5 years. So last year, when my 3-year anniversary was coming up, I took the opportunity to go and run the highest marathon in the world at Everest Base Camp. And again, that was a total pinch me moment, sitting at Everest Base Camp with Everest behind me, filming a documentary with 2 other women, one who was just about to have treatment for breast cancer, the other one with incurable breast cancer. We were all just about to do the Everest Base Camp or the Everest Marathon. And the documentary that we filmed is being premiered next in March at Keswick Film Festival.
Goodness.
So I'm going to a film premiere that I'm in. I'm like, this is really odd. Yes, it's not the Oscars, but I would never have done that had cancer not come into my life. I'm rowing the Pacific in June. That would not be happening. So many things. Yeah, my life has changed so radically as a result.
I know we've touched on it, but your work centers on the power of mindset and resilience. How do you stay positive in everyday life? Because you have this real infectious positivity. I feel lifted.
I'll talk about it a bit more when we do the webinar, but you touched on it earlier, actually, and I think it centers around, well, mindset is so important, but part of that is around gratitude. And every day I just feel eternally grateful that I'm here. I'm around to live life. The Everest thing, the row, it's about life affirmation. It's a way of celebrating life and health. Because it wouldn't have taken much for me not to be here. It would have taken me ignoring my symptoms for a little bit longer. It would have taken me not being aware that they were symptoms of bowel cancer. So I'm eternally grateful for all of the people that have gone before me to raise awareness of the symptoms, including, in fact, one of the rowers who rowed in the Atlantic race with me, who was rowing in memory of his wife, Anna, who died in her mid-30s of bowel cancer. And he used to post regularly on social media about the symptoms. Now, at the time, I had no reason to take it in, to kind of, think anything of it. But subconsciously, somewhere along, that information sank in, which is why when I started getting symptoms, I recognized them as the symptoms of bowel cancer, which is why I went to the GP and I said, I know these are the symptoms of bowel cancer. And it's probably why I was taken seriously. And, I got my diagnosis without having to fight for it. So it's because of people like Ed, people like Dame Deborah James, who fought so hard to raise awareness, that I had that knowledge and I could go to the doctors, and I got my treatment in time before it became a terminal situation. And so gratitude plays a huge role now. I mean, I've always been a positive person, but almost every day I just think of reasons to be grateful. Every time I'm out running or I'm doing something physical, I think I'm so lucky to be able to do this. And you know, even when you're going through dark times, you can always find some reason to be grateful. It might be that the birds are outside singing. I don't know, almost anything. So that's definitely something that I'm very in touch with, very in tune with. And I kind of, you know, if you like, practice gratitude, not in a formal way, not in a journaling way, but think about it a lot.
Absolutely the same. And I think the fact that we get to, right?
Yeah.
When there was a point for both of us where we just thought that I might not be able to. You know, life is so precious. And I think when you hear that word, you just instantly go to the fear and of what could have been. And actually, it's not the case. We're both thriving and healthy. And I think what you're doing is absolutely incredible. And that's why, you know, when we first started talking and were telling you a bit about Horizon, I just knew instantly that we wanted you for our community. So I suppose that leads me to my very last question, and I know you're a busy woman, and then I will let you go. But what made you decide to join Horizon as one of our motivational speakers? We are delighted that you have, but what made you want to join us?
I think it's all connected to purpose. And again, I touched on this before, but cancer really has given me a new purpose in life. And I suppose through sharing my story, the feedback that I get through talking to people, I know that it really helps people to hear other people's stories. And it's almost like I feel a compulsion to share it because I know that it can help people. I know how much I've been helped by hearing other people's stories in the past, to the point where it's probably saved my life. And if I can pass that on and help other people in turn, whether it's giving them the awareness of some of the symptoms so that they are more in tune with their own bodies, or whether it's helping them through any kind of tough or challenging times with things like mindset and, you know, sharing my experience of how I've kind of coped with this, you know, riding the waves of life, then it's just a brilliant thing to do. And I think there's also that wonderful sense of community with kind of like-minded, similar-aged women. Because so many people see midlife as kind of, you know, the slippery slope to the end. But for me, it's absolutely not. It's, you know, it's about looking back on the past few decades. I'm approaching my 50th. And taking all of that experience and wisdom and using it as a launch pad for the next however many years, you know, the next 50 years, let's say. And so, yeah, I'm just absolutely thrilled to be part of this community because I think what you're doing is so brilliant in terms of, you know, women supporting women in any way we can.
That means just so much to us, Felicity, honestly. It really does. And yeah, we are really onto something with Horizon, and I just feel the strength of the community building every single week that goes by. So we're just very lucky to have you. So thank you so much for being a part of it. Thank you so much for your time today. What I was thinking we could do as well on the webinar, which is on the 3rd of Feb, maybe we could talk towards the end about the symptoms of bowel cancer. I think that's really good, just as a reminder. And maybe in the future, you could do a little post in the Glow Lounge just for people to be very clear on what to look out for, because, you know, information is power, and we definitely know it works and it helps. So that would be amazing.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
You're off on your next training adventure next week, young lady. You don't sit still. So
no.
we wish you very well. Please come back because we have a webinar that we need you to do.
Yeah.
I'm very, very excited for that. So just thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. And I cannot wait for the Riding the Waves of Change webinar.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Cassie. It's been brilliant.
Thank you so much, Felicity. I'll speak to you very soon.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.